Welcome back, everybody, to the RacePlazaMedia podcast episode 2.
Hello, hello.
My name is Milan.
My name is Pia.
We're siblings.
Thanks for clarifying again.
Yeah, I just want to point this out.
Is that going to be part of our opening forever?
Maybe. I haven't decided yet because I feel like I'm doing the intro every time, but I just wanted to,
just hammer it in there that everybody understands we're siblings,
correct.
guys.
So in this episode, or episode 2, we will actually be talking a lot about two-wheel racing that we watched this past weekend. We didn't catch any four-wheel racing, unfortunately.
Yes.
However, a lot of two-wheel racing action, and it was very exciting.
Yes.
After we talk about our race recaps, you will be sharing with us something interesting that you watched.
Correct.
And then I have also some news, and I mean, there were some big news also in F1 this week that happened, so we'll be talking about that. I think we have a lot of information that we can share.
Yes.
However, I think let's just jump right into our MotoGP recap. And you, unlike me, where you watched the sprint race.
Yes. I mean, it's very typical that I would be the one watching the sprint races, if not also the qualifying.
Yes.
And so this Saturday was no different. The guys from MotoGP as well as Moto2, Moto3 were all racing at Cota. So the track here in Austin, Texas for the Americas Grand Prix. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I was going into it with big expectations or high expectations. I mean, we've had a really unusual start of the season with the same kind of people on the podium for a majority of the races and sprint races, which has been fun if you are a Marquez family fan. So
yes, I think that's a good way, Marquez family.
Yes. So, I mean,
it.
we've been very happy. I've been very happy because I'm a Marquez girly. And I'm also super happy to see Alex up there, especially siblings, us being siblings, in case you forgot. It's nice for them to be on the podium and for them to have just such a genuine joy to celebrate it together, to enjoy the Lorbeeren, as you would say in German, like the reaping of success together,
And I think it's also, especially for Alex Marquez, because Mark has been such a force in the sport, right? Last race that he won, he he leveled a record, right, with Angel Nieto.
Oh, Nieto, yeah, exactly.
Of 90 race wins all across.
Yes.
And so it's really awesome to see Alex also doing really, really well, because I think he hadn't had his chance to shine. And then you have your older brother who, once again, is such a big name in MotoGP. So it's nice to see that Alex has been doing really well on the bike.
Yeah, and especially on the Gresini Ducati, which is last year's Ducati, keeping up with the new Ducati. And also, I know there's always been a little bit like some haters out there. I feel that Alex is not... he's the second Marquez, and does he deserve to be in MotoGP or in a great team? Like, he clearly does.
Because the name alone, like, if you're not providing results, and it's not like last year he was terrible, right?
No.
He had a lot of top 10 results. It's just that he was not the driver to race in the front.
Yes, and he was on a podium, I think at least one last
year.
Yeah,
they had the brothers.
No, exactly. I think it was in Germany when both of them were on the podium for the main race. But I mean, clearly this start of the season has been world-changing for him.
Absolutely.
Which is so exciting. So I was going into this weekend's race with a lot of expectations. Also last year with Vinales, aka Batman, winning the race, that kind of kicked off our fire and fanship for MotoGP because it was such an exciting race. So I was very much looking forward to this weekend's race. Part of me was also hoping I could be there because it's so close. It's the only race here in the United States. So not this year, but one day I for sure want to attend a MotoGP race.
Yeah, it was honestly, I feel like a little bit of our bad, because in 2 weeks we will be attending the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I think if we would have not already spent all that money, we could have thought about it. But it's just something that kind of came to mind. But last year we flew out to Sonoma to watch the GT World America's Challenge.
Yeah, GT Challenge America.
Yeah, something like
that's
that.
happening this weekend also, or did happen this weekend. But yeah, I mean, it also happened, the race happened much sooner in the season than I expected.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I don't know why I thought it would be later. But nonetheless, it was a great weekend. Some surprises. The sprint race was excellent. Especially the first lap was just a lap of an opening lap that.
To remember.
Yes, exactly. That's the word.
However, just before you kick us off,
yes.
So the I'm just gonna name like the top 6.
Go for it.
So we had we had Marc Marquez
yes.
Starting from P1. Then we had in P2 DG. I'm not gonna say his name. Nope. Fabio. Is it Fabio?
I think it's Fabio.
Fabio Antonio. Antonio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Sorry, I have been struggling with that name. I don't know why. I think it's the N's. I see so many N's.
And it's also it is a long
because
name.
it's technically 2 names together, right?
Yeah.
Gian and Antonio.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it now. Why was
I mean, it wasn't that complicated.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just being dumb. Sorry, Fabio. I don't know why I'm difficult. Okay, then
I really hope his first name is Fabio, but I think it is.
Yeah, it is because I looked him up earlier. I think.
Okay, yeah, Fabio.
Yeah, Fabio.
Yeah.
I looked up Fabio.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought I corrected you just now.
Fabio.
Yes.
Okay, then in P3 we had Alex Marquez. Then in 4th, really exciting because I think he's been struggling a little bit, Pedro Acosta.
Yes. Pedro.
And
the
rookie,
shark.
Yeah, the shark that also everyone was really excited for last year.
Yes.
But he just seems to be struggling to stay on the bike. I don't know if it's the bike issue or if it's him, but because he is on a new bike. He's not on the same bike as last year, so there's obviously changes. It's the better bike because I think technically it's a better bike. But he's been really struggling, so it's good to see him starting in P4.
Yes, I think the commentators were also saying, just very quickly, that it seems like he's pushing the bike to a level where the bike is not quite there yet. Like he wants to get more out of the bike than the bike can provide at this moment of the season. So
So my thought about this is because I'm not that into MotoGP. I don't know the technicalities of it all.
Not yet.
My thought process. So they say that about Pedro Acosta, but other people that fall off the bike, right? They don't say that.
Yes.
So my question is how do you know the difference is like this person is pushing more, is trying to get more out of the bike than the bike can give, and then the other one is like, oh, they're just keep. Is there like a skill thing or is there like a mental thing? How do you know what the difference is?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, I don't know if they're being kind and they're like extending him. It's like, hey, this guy has the goods.
Oh, because
he's just
they
not
think
able
he's
to
the prodigy or a prodigy and things like that. Maybe it's other things that we don't.
Yeah, and
know
I'm not disagreeing with it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what this is because I don't have the knowledge on that.
Yes.
If anyone does, let us know. However, in 5th place we had Morbidelli. On the VR46, which is always really easy to recognize.
Oh, so easy.
I love it. And then we had
the neon yellow.
Yes, I should have clarified that. And then on P6, and that's where I'm going to stop, was Pecco Bagnaia. Again, starting a little bit further on the back. I don't like it. Last year was definitely a Pecco guy.
Yes.
This year, I mean, I am a Marc Marquez guy, but I do want there to be competition.
Yes.
I don't want anyone to run away with it. In the next thing that we're going to talk about, we have in the main, I think we have, in the 250 in Supercross, we have 10 different winners already in this beginning of season.
It's so fun, which I'm not expecting for MotoGP this season.
But I do want that, right?
Yes.
You want competition. You don't want someone to dominate. We don't want, Max Verstappen 2023 season.
Yeah, no.
Good for Max, but it's bad for viewership unless Lewis does it in a Ferrari.
Yes,
then I'm dancing, But you guys know what I mean. Even then,
sure.
You want competition there. So I hope Pecco is able to kind of like find the rhythm that he had last year.
It's the second row of the starting grid.
It's not that far back.
It's not so far away. He is great on the bike. He has the speed. He has the pace. And so I definitely think going into the sprint race, that he is definitely a contender for the podium, if not the win, depending on the race, how it pans out.
And then just for clarification, like the difference between P1 and 6th is 0.5.
Yeah.
So it's not overtly big.
No, exactly. So going into the sprint race, I'm very excited. I love the beginning layout of the Cota track. You have a little bit of elevation going into this big left-hand turn, which is so fun. I do visually enjoy the Cota track. You can very clearly see that this track is an American track. It's a Texan track with the stars and everything, and also the prizes, especially for the Grand Prix with the horns.
I like it though.
Yeah, no, it looks great. It all works together, but. So it's like this first turn is so fun. And then like there's like I hinted at, the opening lap for this race was just insane. I mean, Mark, Alex, and immediately Pecco were battling for the first or the top step of the podium, going constantly back and forth. And this might have even foreshadowed the main race. Mark had a huge like wobble, like insanely big, like his feet were like all over wobble in the first lap, which scared everybody. Of course, he was able to like secure himself then. I think Alex had led for a couple of laps before Mark, of course, took it away, and he ended up winning the sprint race. But it seemed like it was the foreshadowing for the main race. I mean, but yeah, the opening lap, if you have not seen the opening lap of the Grand Prix or of the sprint race from this past week, and I highly recommend it if you have access to it. Yes.
I was going to say, probably at this point, there might be even on YouTube like a highlight.
True.
Highlight of the sprint race, and then that would definitely be included.
Oh, 100%. It would, at least the most exciting bits will definitely be included. I also love that we saw a lot of battling in the mid-pack this time around, because that's one of the good things I was thinking about it, of if the front is not quite as contested, like, because eventually Mark was driving away with it or riding away with it, whatever you want to say, and then Alex and Pecco were there, but they weren't quite battling, so everybody, all the action we saw or that happened behind them, we actually got to see.
Were Pecco and Alex battling?
For a little bit, but I don't remember off the top of my head right now, like a lot of battling, because I saw a lot more battling between DVR 46s, so Frankie and Fabio, and then also Quartararo, Pedro Costa. I mean, it was a really fun midfield battle, and then also I love to see Ogura.
Ogura.
Yeah, exactly. It was a bummer after the last race that the rookie was disqualified. Was he disqualified, right? Or did he get a time penalty?
No, he got disqualified, I think.
Yeah. So then his teammate, of course, Raul Fernandez, ended up getting a point, which is nice. But it's just nicer that Ogura is there, and he is staying on the bike.
Yes.
And he's making up a lot of positions. And I did see a lot of his battling also, which was really cool to see. And I mean, it's just, I love MotoGP because it's also so anxiety inducing, because there's like the adrenaline is quite high, especially when they are battling so close, when they're laying down in the corner lower and lower at those speeds, and when they show you, they went from 330 kilometers per hour to 50 in like matters of like
50 meters or
like
something like that.
Insane, and then back up again. I mean, it's just exciting.
It is. It's track motorcycle racing is super exciting because it is this thing with the traction and stuff like this is just a lot less, and you see a lot of wiggles and stuff like that, and I was surprised last year, but it is quite common for someone to just crash out and just drop the bike. A lot of like bottom drops where you just try to push more than the bike is able to give you a grip, and then you just the bike slides out underneath you, and most of those you get a little bit banged up, but it's most of the time not big injury.
But that makes it so exciting because it could happen at any moment. And I mean, of course things can happen in other motorsports at any moment too, but I feel like it's so much closer to the edge. Not that it isn't in Formula One, but I don't know, it just feels, for me personally, different watching it.
Well, it does, because in F1 you don't ever see someone put their knee onto the or just like laying like I think last year we had this really iconic picture of Jorge Martin essentially just laying on the track when he's like taking this corner, and it's like it is so fascinating. And part of me had this thought earlier this week, because we went back and watched some F1 archive races. And I was like, I wonder who started this in MotoGP with like laying
down.
further down, because
Yes.
I'm assuming it didn't start out like that, because
Yeah.
the bikes weren't built like
Of
that.
course,
And then it started, and I was wondering, because we know in racing who was the first guy to really popularize drifting. It was this Japanese driver. I can't remember his name right now, but he essentially started doing it because everyone else was too slow.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm just going to start doing that,
Yes.
you know? And now we have drift racing too. So I would like to find out. Maybe I'll make that my homework to find out.
Oh, I
and
love
then
that.
I'll tell you guys next week.
I do want to
If we are
learn
able to
more
pinpoint
about MotoGP history as well. I mean, there's been such iconic riders, and they mention it also throughout the races. They drop names, or like when you do your research and read things online, there's so many iconic people that have come through MotoGP. And I mean, there's been historic moments and races and championships and things that I don't know about yet, just because I'm so new to it. That I'm definitely excited to learn more about it.
I think it's also really interesting because, so going into MotoGP, the one name that I really knew was Valentino Rossi, right? And there's a famous rivalry between him and Marc Marquez. And there was also this like famous situation where they got together in a race, and then you can see Valentino move his leg. And of course, one part of the camp says, you know, this is Valentino, how dare he? And then the other one was like, no, like it was just a knee-jerk reaction. And because it Mark ended up, I don't know if he fell, but it impacted his race negatively and stuff like that. And going into MotoGP, I was actually like a Valentino Rossi guy. I was like, okay, Rossi, clearly he's the dude, because you can still see him race, just not on the bike anymore. And we've seen him in Le Mans. He races in the WEC. He's part of the team BMW. And so he's just a cool guy, and he owns a team, right? The VR46, that's his team. But it's kind of interesting, like, now, like, I'm just excited about Mark, because I had this almost like negative connotation towards Mark. But then last year, when he got his first win after so many, like 1,400 days or something like that, after his big injury, part of me is like, you can't help but root for a guy like that, right? Because like you've overcome something so terrible.
And also he's
very charming, and he's Dancy Mark.
His dancing, it's just
we call him Dancy Mark because he's a dancer, you know. He loves to dance, and whether he's on beat or not, it doesn't matter, because he loves it, and it's just this joy that he has. And it spreads very like
but that's exactly
people.
It though. Again, with all of MotoGP, it's their joy and their passion and that they're so excited for every single win. You know, it's just, I just love it, because you should be excited about it.
Okay, here's a theory, a random theory. So maybe we don't have that in F1 as much, because it's the wrong quote unquote nations. Because like in MotoGP, you have a lot of Spanish riders, you have a lot of Italian riders who are known to be like quite open also with their emotions and excitements, where in Formula One we have, you know, the Dutch driver, right? Quite stoic person, and then you have a lot of British guys, you know. I don't know, maybe this is like, I'm pulling this out of my butt, you know, but I like, that's just a thought I just had.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know. But it is a theory I will acknowledge.
Okay, good. Very good.
All right, let's move on.
No science behind it, okay?
Let's move on to the main race.
Yes.
Which we watched mostly live today.
Correct, yeah.
We had to have some pauses, but it don't matter now. I was excited going into the race because, of course, we had at the end, just very quickly, the sprint race ended with Mark winning, Alex coming in second, Bagnaia coming in third. So it was a question, is this going to happen again?
Do you have the results up?
For the sprint race?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell me where Pedro ended?
Pedro Acosta ended up in 7th.
Okay, he did drop down a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. But so we had, I'll go through the top 7 then now quickly. Marc Marquez, Alex, Pecco, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Frankie Morbidelli, Quartararo, and then Pedro Acosta.
Okay.
Yes. So, and then going into Sunday, like I said, I think there was a big curiosity, maybe dare I say, in the world to see if it will happen again, if Mark is going to win yet again, if Alex is going to be on the podium again, if Pecco is going to be on the podium again. So going into this race, I was definitely curious to see. I was half expecting it in some iteration or not, because also Mark likes the track, but he has a mixed track record on the track.
He's won it 8 times, I think. Has he not won there 8 times? Isn't that what he said? What they said? But he has. But I think last year he fell off.
That's what it was. Yes, exactly.
But yeah, he has won there. I think.
But
8
he likes
times.
the track. I mean, that's what they also said. Like it's a track that he really enjoys. So it's like, well, if he's in the shape that he is now, if he's feeling the bike the way he is now, it would take an error or like something for him for it to not work out. So going into it, I was very excited, and
so do you want to talk about the start?
You could. Oh, I almost forgot about the start. Oh, that was crazy. I also didn't expect. I didn't realize that there was going to be rain potentially.
Correct. So when quite overcast.
Yeah. So when I started up the live stream, I saw some drizzles on the camera, and I was like, oh. I didn't realize it was going to be potentially a wet race or a mixed kind of race. So there was the field was mixed. We had several riders with slick tires on, especially the ones a little bit further back.
I think it was Brad Binder, Enea Bastianini, and Ai Ogura.
Yeah, I think there was some more.
Yeah, these are the ones that I know on top of my head right now.
Okay, gotcha. And then the some more of the top riders or the riders in the front had, I think, intermediates on going into having the bikes on the grid. We were getting ready for our formation lap. Was it a formation lap or a deciding lap?
I think formation, yeah.
And it was just a matter of minutes, literally.
I think 3 minutes.
Yes, some of the riders are already sitting on the bike. Some of them were just standing there. And all of a sudden, we just see Mark take off running. And then as soon as Pecco clocked it, he takes off running. And with a matter of seconds, more and more riders just start running to the pit because they couldn't change their tires on the track anymore. They had to get the new bike. And so it was chaos, absolutely chaos. So the people who had slicks already on were like, all right, perfect. We are on the right tires. And the people in the front were like, oh, shit, we have to change. So they started running and it was absolute chaos. Some of them, like Pecco and Mark, were lining up in the pit lane, ready for the formation lap. And then the race was red flagged.
Correct.
With a delayed start, which is a little controversial.
So it is controversial, but now that I've read about it, I am in love with it.
Okay.
Because this is exactly why Marc Marquez is Marc Marquez.
Oh, okay. Speak.
Okay. So essentially is Mark, in his post-race interview, he said that he had actually spoken to his chief engineer or chief mechanic 7 minutes before the start if the second bike was ready. And he told me yes. And then I said to him, maybe I will leave the grid. Why? Because I predicated when I will leave, I saw the rain tires were already not the correct strategy. I predicted that, okay. And then so if
He's
you
such a game player, like mind games.
If you actually look at it, he was actually standing next to his bike. He was not on the bike. So what he's telling is obviously also the truth, because MotoGP has a rule, and I think that was introduced after the 2018 race in Argentina, because there was like there was a mess like this happening, that if 10 riders or more are starting from the pit lane, it will result in an aborted start. So Mark said that he knew that if he would leave, that more riders would leave. And he was essentially gambling, or he was like, I know 10 or more riders will leave. And then I will essentially force a abandoned start and force a quick start, which if he would have won this race...
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. This gives me flashbacks of, I don't know if you've seen this, of Sebastian Vettel in 2016, where he, during the Chinese Grand Prix, passed 2 people in the pit lane during a safety car procedure because he said he knows the rules, just like Marc Marquez. And he said that he knows that during the safety car procedure, you're not allowed to overtake, with the exception in a pit lane, entry and exit. And he ended up passing 2 people, and people were like, what the hell? But he was like, I know the rules. I read them, and it makes a huge difference.
Yes.
And this is Mark. He was like, he said, I know the rules.
Yeah.
And he knew that the power also he has. And literally, we saw it from Pecco's perspective. He saw Mark run away, and he immediately ran off too. And of course, a bunch of people are going to follow. And... at first, when we were watching this, like, oh, this is not fair. Yeah. But knowing the rules and taking advantage of that, whether you agree with the rule or not,
it doesn't matter to me now anymore.
That's besides the point.
Because it's the rule.
It's the rule.
And I'm like,
and I love that.
Because we were talking about it during the race or when they were delaying it, and then everybody now was back to the original starting grid. I was like, man, this is so unfair for the people who are gambling on the slick tires from the get-go.
Correct.
They should have been starting at the front, and then everybody else either from the pit lane or behind them. But now knowing that...
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Chef's
so excited that you looked it up and that you're sharing this with me now, because this is just makes me like Mark so much more, because
it's brilliant.
I love a driver or a rider who understands the rules, who knows the rules, and also plays maybe with them within the bounds of the rules.
I mean, you know the rules and you essentially know how to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and I mean, there's loopholes, but everybody takes advantage of the loopholes. If you know the rules, then you can. And then, of course, it was a big gamble, but then, like you said, he probably knew the weight it has of him running out and getting a new bike, that it would trigger just like this domino effect. Oh my God.
It's so brilliant.
So good.
It's such a strategic masterclass.
Yes, because I was already wondering why he was standing, because he was one of the few, if not the only one standing. And then there was also this beautiful shot that when they replayed it above the grid, where you could see Mark just it's time saying to like his person right there and just taking off, and Pecco clocking it, immediately jumping off the bike, yelling something to the person next to him, and just taking off. And I mean, also you got to think about it, it's them in those weird ass suits running with like their movement is restricted, of course.
Absolutely. It's not like they can run full sprint.
No, but Austin is also warm usually.
Yeah.
And then running,
I could imagine it was muggy.
Yeah, and then running to wherever your like
pit is,
because it could be quite
far.
The jog.
Yeah.
And that also takes up energy that you'll be missing during the race. Potentially, it could also be adrenaline. It maybe works in your favor to some extent. But, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant.
It is absolutely brilliant. So that ended up resulting in a aborted start.
Yes.
It also ended resulting in a quick start.
Yes.
So they did a sighting lap, they did a formation, and then they started off the race, and they did one lap less.
Yes, correct.
Because the race started 10 minutes later than anticipated.
Yes.
I guess all us talking about this also foreshadowing that Mark ended up not winning the race. Very, very unfortunate.
Super unfortunate, because he also had quite a lead.
He was over 2 seconds out.
Yeah, ahead at that point, and it was just such a bummer, because there was also only 9 laps left to the race. So there was a big part of the race already ridden. Do you say that? Ridden? Driven?
Raced.
Completed? Raced. I like raced. Yeah. So by that time, it was already like a big chunk of the race raced. I don't know how I like that. But it's just, it broke my heart. Because, I mean, it's always, like I said, it's always so close. And, it could happen at any moment. And, the people in the front usually don't make as many mistakes. But it does happen.
Yeah.
And for him to happen back to back, like last year, this year, he had this really close call, like I said, in a sprint race, which almost foreshadowed it. But him falling off the bike, I feel like will fuel him so much for the upcoming race.
Yeah, I saw online people were like crying wolf and like painting the devil on the wall, like how like, of course Mark's worst enemy is Mark. Here's the thing, that they were talking about it also in the cool down room. That they were saying that I think Mark hit part of the curb and it was wet.
Yeah.
And so he ended up losing control. And they were talking about, I think it was Pecco and DG, they were talking about how they saw it and they were avoiding it.
Yeah.
Maybe Mark thought it was dry. Maybe he didn't see it. I can't recall if he took the same line through that corner section before. But essentially, the bike slipped out and he got back on the bike.
Yes.
But he ended up losing a peg. So for his right foot.
Yeah, exactly.
The car was the bike was quite damaged on the side too.
Yeah, there's also the screen in
his
the front
windscreen
was
damaged.
Or like gone, essentially.
Gone, yeah, and then his suit did what it's supposed to do. It was damaged, but you know, and then he ended up he got back on the bike and then he raced a little bit, but then he ended up going back to the pits because he would have had to hold his right foot up the whole time, and which is, I'm assuming, also a little bit difficult because you use the left foot also for shifting, so you probably need some grip, and it also just made it really dangerous. He did drive up to like P18, but
I think he rejoined at P18,
and then there was a little bit of battling
with Maverick exactly at that point, which it was just like his bike was damaged. I mean, like, not only the foot peg, but it was also like once he actually retired the bike, you could see there was like a chunk missing. There was a hole in the bike. So I'm sure the whole aero, everything was like out of the window. They were talking about also that in the sprint race, one of the riders, I think it's Maverick.
Was it last year, not Maverick?
No. I was talking about this.
No, it was Binder. Was it Jack Miller? Sorry, not Binder. I thought it was Miller who like damaged his shield and like he couldn't turn his neck.
Exactly.
Because you have all that wind force.
Exactly. So I mean, imagine him like finishing the race like that. So it was a bummer that he couldn't continue his reign, his undefeated streak.
Yeah.
But it makes it just all the more exciting.
Correct, because it ended up Pecco who ended up taking the win. So he was able to pass Alex Marquez. I don't think with a lot of difficulty.
No.
I wonder if it would have been more difficult if Mark was still in a race, because I feel like for whatever reason in second place Alex was able to keep Bagnaia behind him in the last couple of races, but then again he actually was leading the couple of races, and then Mark was letting him lead the race, and then he was just kind of maintaining it, and then he ended up passing him. So who knows?
I thought Alex had made a little mistake, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But yeah, so I mean, at the end, Pecco was over 2 seconds ahead.
Yeah, I think once he was in that clean air, he just really lit up, and he drove out quite a distance, quite a gap.
Quite quickly.
Yeah,
too.
At some point he was up, I think, over 3 seconds. It ended up being 2 seconds at the end, but I'm sure at the end he was also not pushing as much.
Especially the last lap, we noticed that the distance was getting less and less.
He didn't need to. There was no need to take a risk or trying to put in the fastest lap time or anything like that, because
not worth it.
He hadn't been on the top step in a minute.
Yeah.
And he even said it himself in a post-race interview, and he's been he's very happy, obviously. And I'm hoping that will kind of give him the energy that he needs going into the next race. And because I do want to see some good battling between the two of them, between Marc Marquez and Bagnaia. Because, you know, obviously they're on maybe the best bike on the track.
Yeah.
I think it will be interesting once Jorge Martin, which we also got to see. He was on the side of the track, and he did a few interviews.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's good to see him. He's obviously still out because of injury. Will be interesting to see how he will fare on the
Aprilia. Is it Aprilia?
Aprilia is spelled with a P.
I always forget.
I know you always say with a P, but it doesn't matter. So it was good to see him.
Yes, for sure. It was also nice to see DG Antonio, or DG, coming in third.
Yes, absolutely.
Which was really nice, because they were also talking about that he's had such a rough couple of months because of like surgeries and things like that. So it's just also nice to see a different face on the podium. You know, somebody else.
Yeah.
And
I think it was just a matter of time. It's unfortunate that it was a self-forced error, almost, or unforced error, self-caused. I don't
know, but it was nice to see him come in third. Then we have Frankie Morbidelli come in fourth. Jack Miller, which was I feel like it's so exciting to see him come in fifth, because I always hear his name and I see some beautiful battles of his, but it's really nice to see also a Yamaha up in fifth. So that's really exciting. We have in sixth, we have Bisecchi, or Bisecchi, if they call him. And then seventh, finally, we see him up closer, Enea Bastianini. It's, I feel so sad that his bike is not quite...
Well, he essentially got Pedro Acosta's spot on the Red Bull KTM Tech 3, which is the
second
KTM team. Very unfortunate because he came from the number 1 team, the Ducati.
Because he was with Pecco in a team, and he was on podiums last season, and he was fighting.
I think he won also sprint race.
Yeah, and he also, I mean, he was in the top 4 of the Rider Championship last year, and now it's been a tough start of the season so far. Granted, we need to give everybody some grace here because it's the 3rd Grand Prix of the season.
I hate when they always talk about this, like, you know, like the end of the world.
Yes.
And oh my God, like we still have like 21 races to go.
We have a lot of races to go this season.
Of course, for Jorge Martin, it is a steep. Because there's currently 86 points or 87 points between him and first place. So it will be difficult. But if you already have points on the board, like there's so much that can still happen.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm not willing to make any predictions or anything like that. I think very unfortunate again that Pedro Acosta dropped off his bike. We had quite a few DNFs.
Yes.
We had Vinales, right? He DNF'd, he didn't, or did he finish?
Nope,
no, he fell off and he got back on.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So he finished. So the people that DNF'd.
Okay,
are Pedro Acosta, Joan Mir, yet again, unfortunately. Brad Binders, there were some issues with the bike. Then Marc Marquez, of course, he had the incident. And then the rookie Aldeguer.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it? Alex's teammate.
On the Grassini bike,
exactly. He also DNF'd. But who I also want to point out is Agura.
Yeah,
Agura. I mean, he came in... I do want to give some attention to Marini. He came in 8th on a Honda, also excellent. John Zarco, he did excellent as well. He did have an incident, so he dropped all the way to the back of the field, unfortunately. But Ogura coming in 9th, starting, I believe he started in 17th, and then working his way up. Yes, we had several DNFs, but it's just nice to see consistent, good riding from him.
Absolutely. And I mean, people DNF, but that's the racing, right?
Yes.
You kept it on the track and you benefited from people's mistakes. Yes, but you didn't waste it.
Yeah. See, okay, so this is something I was thinking about earlier and also clearly just now is the whole thing. I'm sure people will talk about, Pecco only won because, which is maybe true, but he let me finish the thought out loud because you know what I'm saying. But it's like Pecco only won because Marc Marquez didn't finish the race. You know, like, yes, it might be an argument, but that's literally part of racing. You have to be ready to step up if needed. Also, you know, like, obviously Pecco is an excellent rider. He was multiple champ of MotoGP. He is on an excellent bike. He's an excellent rider. Like, yes, he's been not on the top step of the podium this season yet until this race, but he's competing at the top. People were coloring it like his career is over or his year is over. It's the 3rd race. Yeah. And I know people will say that, Pecco only won, or like they will take away some of the value of the win because
it doesn't make sense because you can make that argument about literally so many race wins.
100%.
You know, it doesn't matter, you know, because in the end he's the one who kept the bike on the track, right? And we also don't know if he would have maybe been able to overtake. Of course not. We don't know that, right? Of course. But we know that he won, and that's just the way it is. Because I hate that argument. It was like, you only won because of this. Well, but that's racing. That's literally racing.
And that's why I love also that he celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
celebrate your W's.
Yeah, exactly. Like immediately. I also thought, but that just might be me interpreting things. I saw him do a fist right after, and then I thought I saw him look at the board just to verify again, like I am first, and then it it really settled in, and he did this beautiful long wheelie at the end, just like showing off in a way, or just celebrating,
of course, and
which is not a negative thing. I meant just like taking in the win that he's fought for this whole season and he was ready for, and hopefully it will give him some momentum and we'll have this really nice fight for the overall driver championship. Yeah. Amongst several riders.
Yeah, and he also said in his post-race interview, sorry if I don't have a voice because I was screaming on my
yes, I remember.
On my outlaps. So really, really awesome.
Yes.
I think I wanted to mention one thing. Maverick Vinales, last year's winner, ended up coming 14th. So he was able to swoop in, get in 2 points.
Nice.
A little bit of a bummer that he wasn't able to get more points. He is on a team with Enea Bastianini, also on the KTM Tech 3 team. And then one thing I wanted to say, I think that will also be a good trend. Did you wanted to say anything else about MotoGP?
Well, I was just going to go over the overall driver ranking before we
Yes, do you want to tell us who's leading the championship?
So now, for the first time in his MotoGP career. Alex Marquez is the current leader of the Rider Championship with 87 points, followed very closely by his brother Marc Marquez with 86. And then in third place currently we have Pecco Bagnaia with 75 points, which is still close. I mean, 11 points difference between Pecco and Marc, which is definitely doable. I mean, it's nothing. It's like literally falling off the bike once, not finishing the race, you know. It's I mean, it's so early, guys. Like, there's so much that can still happen. Yeah, we'll see, but it's exciting for Alex to be in the top. I do hope we will see an Alex win.
Yeah, I really hope
at some point.
I was hoping it might have been today.
Yes.
Not that I was hoping something would happen to Pecco,
No.
But I would have loved if he would have been able to defend that first place when he inherited from Marc after he fell off. That would have been really awesome. Yeah. But I think maybe because Marc won his first race last year, it was under very difficult conditions. It was the rain race, right? So maybe something like that would happen. Something must have maybe happened. Sorry, I don't know. I'm struggling with more words. Is where the main Ducati is for whatever reason not the preferred bike. You know how sometimes in F1 you have like, these cars usually do better on tracks like that, and stuff like that. Maybe something like this has to happen. Like, the stars just have to align. But I do hope it happens this year. It would be awesome if he would be able to share the podium with Marc.
Yes.
You know, if it would be like a Alex 1, Marc 2 situation. Yeah, or maybe we'll get a Marquez sandwich. Maybe Bagnaia in there. Who knows, right? The one thing that I wanted to point out, and maybe that will transition us now into our second topic, is that something that I think is a little bit unfortunate about the MotoGP broadcast that I thought today is that sometimes they show us a lot of racing from the front, but not from the overtaking positions. And sometimes they will then show them in a tiny window, which I think is really annoying because I don't know, it's just not a good look because the window is very small, and then you have the big window where actually not a lot is happening. Where the second thing that we're going to talk about, I think they do a much greater job at that, which we're going to transition now to talk about our next topic, or next race that we watched, which is Supercross, or AMA Supercross.
Right.